Hello, friends. It's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums again this one's going to be a little bit different. So I've been trying to do some deck unboxings, but I think what I want to do, since it's been a while since I've ever really talked about a deck review, I wanted to do my first official YouTube deck review featuring the Spacious Tarot. Now, I'm going to be very honest and very real. Now, for me, this is a deck that I have used for years and years and years. And I don't recall if this was something that was sent to me for me to review or just to have, or if I purchased it, because it's literally been that long since I've had it. But I typically use this deck the most. I would say it's something that I use so regularly, and it's something that has become such a beautiful deck for me to use with my clients that I absolutely adore this deck. Now, this deck is actually in first edition. Okay, so this is from 2019. So it's been a while since I've had it. I mean, it's been what, 6 years? Is that 6 years? I don't even know. Whatever time, math, whatever. Or is that 5 years? I think that's 5 years. I can't do math, obviously. I'm not a math girly. I'm a tarot girly. I'm a astrology girly. Okay, so this is actually by Carrie Mallon and Annie, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce this right, maybe, I'm assuming. And my poor book is in shambles. It's it's falling apart. So we're not going to go into the book too much, but I do want to say, if you're someone who is looking for a unique tarot deck, this is a really nice one. I don't really like tarot decks that feature a lot of people in them, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos. And so I just really liked that everything was gender neutral here. There is no people in them. It's just animals and nature and spaces. And I really love that the deck includes a lot of information for you to kind of interpret the cards, either utilizing, your own kind of meanings that you've devised over time, or even if you're just wanting something that's pretty simple. And it talks about, the images that they've used. So for the strength card, they talk about, how it works as far as growing up in a harsh environment and things like that, because in the actual card, it's a cactus that's blooming. And so it's really just a beautiful deck, I think, especially if you're trying to really get comfortable with tarot, but maybe struggle with some of the images in the Rider-Waite-Smith. This still has that Rider-Waite-Smith influence, but not overly so, because it's more nature-based and things like that. So even with each of the minor cards, it's nice because a lot of decks don't really add a lot of information or keywords or things like that with their minor cards. So this is very nice. And I think that this is an indie print. Again, I've had this so long, I've never replaced it. It's one of these decks that I'm I think I'm going to have to buy a replacement just because I love it so much. And my card deck has been and been through a lot, and it's seen better days. So, and I know that they've done expansion packs and astrological packs. So my deck came with this little bag. This is what I carry it in, especially when I'm traveling and doing readings for clients in different spaces or at events. And I did not put this in order, so it's not going to be in order if that's what you're looking for. Sorry. There's no gilding. I've thought about taking the risk and edging the cards myself, in a very beautiful blue, just so that it would match, just because I don't like the unfinished sides, which is fine, because again, indie prints are not always going to have as much of the luxurious kind of things that you get used to from mass-produced decks. So the backs are just, it looks like space, right? It's little dots. It's nothing crazy. As you can see, my cards are pretty worn. Again, I use them quite often, but I just love the imagery, because some of these have such a beautiful throwback to, Rider-Waite-Smith, while also including these beautiful natural landscapes. So here we have, it's nothing crazy, but I love this deck so much. And over the years, it's just become a favorite of mine. it just has been so nice to use with all clients, because I feel like no matter who's sitting across the table from me, they're not going to be offended or feel excluded from the imagery from these cards. And so there's nothing scary, even like the devil, which is a card that in most traditional tarot decks can look a little bit scary, a little bit intense, especially if someone is not really out of the broom closet, so to speak, or is, slowly leaving religion. It can just feel very intense to look at the devil card. But a lot of these cards have just simple imagery that is just beautiful. It's peaceful. I think it's a really amazing deck. I mean, even with the tower, it's just a bunch of rocks being struck by lightning, and it still gives you the energy of the tower card without having like the figures falling down and the crown falling off and the foundation being broken, which I do love those interpretations too. But even with the high priestess, we have this beautiful seashell. There's the moon inside, it's just a very peaceful deck. I'm going to just go this way, of course. We're flipping and flipping. So we're seeing these beautiful landscapes and additions. Oh my gosh, now they're all going to be this way. And I feel like this deck specifically kind of connects a lot of my like interpretations of what rulerships these suits have that other decks really don't. So to me, it's nice because then I can say, see, this is why I feel like Swords rules over winter, or why Pentacles rules over autumn or fall. So I'm kind of given, or like this is very much like summer. There's heat. Or spring, there's so much water and things kind of growing. The Hermit, it's just a lantern in the middle of the woods. Like, oh my goodness. I was trying to have a little lighting set up just to kind of, because it's a little dark on one side and it just keeps slipping off. And I didn't realize that it has like a little stand I could just put it on. So that was my bad. Sorry for the loud noise. But as you can see, to me, it's like this is very much representing summer. And the Eight of Cups, it's like, it's still translating a lot of that energy to where it's easy to read. And it's just, I think it's beautiful. So I know that there's so many tarot decks out there, and I also love that this has like a kind of like not super matte finish to where like it's not keeping track of like any oils on my skin, which is something that, because I do live in Colorado and it is very dry here, I'm constantly putting lotion on my hands. So it's nice that it's not transferred on there. It doesn't look smudgy. It doesn't look gross, even after all these years. And this is also my favorite Magician card. I'm like hoping to get something like this tattooed on me because I just love this image. I think it's so beautiful, and it's like the perfect like amount of like tarotness, but then also just like simple, the Lovers. So as you guys can see, it's not going to be maybe like the easiest deck to kind of dive into, especially if you're not super familiar with the card meanings or you're still pretty new on your tarot journey. But I feel like something about this deck just feels very intuitive to me. It just really speaks to me. And maybe it's just because I've been, reading tarot for entirely too long now that I can just pick it up and it just feels very... I don't know. It just feels very comfortable to look at these images. It's nothing too like out there, as I'm sure you've seen some of my other videos. If you have, I have some kind of wild looking decks that are very artistic, but then feel like an acid trip. And so it's just nice to have something that's a little bit more soothing, a little bit more comforting, that maybe everyone could look at and see themselves in or relate to the messages there. And I don't know. I just think it's one of the beautiful... Here's a strength card, like I was saying. And so with the story that it has inside of the guidebook to kind of let you know why they chose a cactus and how it can represent strength. So I just think it's beautiful. and I've used it for years. And I think this is probably my most used deck, to be quite honest, because I've just used it so much for clients in person. Second to probably like the Rosebud Tarot, which I've only had that for about a year or so. And I mean, those two are like my hardest working decks that I use with clients. I just really enjoy how they work. I love that this is just a traditional tarot size. It's a nice thick card stock. It's not super thick, so it's still bendy, but it's not going to get so bent out of shape that like you lose the shape of your deck. Which I do have some other decks that do that. It's like I shuffle them a couple of times and then they're like warped, and then I'm like trying to like bend them back without cracking the cards. So my only thing would be, I wish that these had some sort of edging or gilding or something, or maybe were blue on the side or something to kind of go. Other than that, I think that this deck is amazing. I even love that this box it's just a great box for a tarot deck, especially like tech boxes. I understand that they are more cost effective, but I always feel like I'm ripping them to shreds every time I want to get into my tarot deck. So, and I also love that there was an inclusion of a little bag so that you can just kind of throw your deck in there as you go. But that's kind of my review, I guess, so to speak. I highly recommend this deck if you're looking for something that is more nature based, something that is great for beginners or even the experienced reader out there that maybe is looking to kind of get away from the typical imagery that we see with most tarot decks, which is essentially kind of like a copy and paste of every single Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So let me know, have you ever heard of this deck? Is this a deck that you've ever used? Is this a deck that you love? If you don't love it, let me know why, which is fine. If it is a deck that you're interested in utilizing, let me know why. Because I'm always like curious to see why people choose to work with the decks that they do. I just think it's so fascinating. I feel like it speaks so much on what type of reader you are, like what your aesthetic is, like what you're into. And I'm very much crunchy granola mom or something. So I feel like this deck really encapsulates that sort of energy for me. And I just love it. I think it's fantastic because it's great to read with, for kids that are maybe curious about tarot, because I do teach like teen tarot classes. So it's like just a nice deck that doesn't seem overwhelming with the imagery. So let me know. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for joining me for my very first official YouTube review. I hope that this made sense. I don't know how much more information to kind of give here. I think that you can purchase this at the spacious.tarot.com website. If not, look on Carrie Mallon's page. There she is. There's the names. I think that they both have links on how to purchase the decks and the expansion packs and things like that, if it is something that you're interested in purchasing for yourself. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one. Take care. Stay safe. And as always, make good choices. Bye.